In a small, quiet town, there lived a young woman named Lily. She was soft-spoken and kind, someone who loved simple things like watching birds in the garden or listening to old songs on her small radio. But deep inside, she carried a dream she rarely spoke about to anyone. Lily wanted to sing not just for herself but for others too. She dreamed of standing on a stage, holding a microphone, with bright lights shining down and a crowd listening to her voice. But this dream felt far away, almost impossible. Her home was quiet but heavy, especially since her mother had passed away years ago. Lily's father, a strict and practical man, was always busy with his work. He believed in hard work and discipline, not in music or dreams. Whenever Lily hummed a tune or practiced softly in her room, her father would knock on the door and say, "Stop wasting time. You'll never be enough." Those words sank deep into Lily's heart. Every time she felt brave enough to imagine herself singing, those same words echoed in her mind. "You'll never be enough." At school, Lily kept to herself. She was polite, helpful, but quiet. Some classmates noticed she carried headphones everywhere, but no one really knew she sang along to every song, learning each word carefully. One afternoon, an announcement was made at school. There would be a talent show in 2 weeks. The prize wasn't much, just a small trophy and a round of applause, but for Lily, this felt like a tiny door opening, a chance to finally share her voice. Her best friend Maya noticed the light in Lily's eyes and asked gently, "Are you thinking of joining?" Lily hesitated. She wanted to say yes, but fear rushed in quickly. She could almost hear her father's voice already. "No," she said with a small smile. "I'm not sure." At dinner that evening, Lily gathered courage. She told her father, "There's a talent show next month at school. I was thinking, maybe I could sing." Her father didn't look up from his plate. He took a sip of water, wiped his mouth slowly, then said flatly, "You'll only embarrass yourself. You're not good enough for that." His words were cold, but they cut deep like a knife. Lily lowered her eyes and said nothing more that night. After dinner, she sat by her window looking at the moon. In her hands was a small photograph of her mother holding her as a baby. Her mother had loved music. She remembered how her mother used to hum sweet melodies while brushing her hair when she was little. That night, Maya called her. "You can do this," Maya said softly. "You've sung for me before. You have a beautiful voice. Don't let anyone stop you." Lily felt something stir inside her. Maybe Maya was right. Maybe it didn't matter what her father said. The next day, Maya arranged for a few close friends to gather at her house. She set up a small speaker and handed Lily a microphone. "Just sing," she encouraged. "No judges here, just us." Lily's hands trembled as she held the microphone. Her voice cracked a little at first, but then she closed her eyes and imagined her mother smiling at her. Slowly, her voice became stronger, clearer, and soon the room fell completely silent. When she finished the song, there was a pause, then soft clapping. One of the friends wiped away a tear and whispered, "That was beautiful." Lily felt a warmth inside her chest, a feeling she hadn't felt in a long time. But as soon as she returned home that evening, all her courage faded again. Her father was sitting in his chair reading the newspaper. He didn't ask where she'd been or what she had done, but his silence felt heavy. In her small bedroom, Lily wondered what to do. The dream was alive again, but so was the fear. Could she really stand on stage in front of everyone? Would her father be right? Would she only embarrass herself? She stared at the talent show sign-up sheet on her desk. The deadline was in 3 days. That night, as she lay awake, she thought of her mother's lullabies. She thought of how it felt to sing at Maya's house, and quietly, deep down, a small part of her still believed in her dream. She didn't know what the next few days would bring, but something inside her whispered, maybe this time, things could be different. 3 days passed quickly, and the sign-up sheet for the talent show was nearly full. Lily sat in class, watching as more names were added. Some students excited, others joking about who would win. Inside her, a battle was going on. She wanted to write her name, but every time she picked up a pen, her father's voice echoed louder. "You're not good enough. You'll only embarrass yourself." That afternoon, Maya sat beside her at lunch. "You're going to sign up, right?" Maya asked, nudging her gently. Lily hesitated. "I want to," but she trailed off, unable to explain the heaviness she felt. Maya reached into her bag and pulled out a small charm. It was a tiny silver pendant, shaped like a music note. "My grandmother gave this to me," Maya said softly. "She said music is meant to heal, to express what words can't. Take this, Lily. Wear it when you sing. Maybe it'll remind you why you love music in the first place." Lily smiled, her fingers closing around the pendant, feeling its cool surface. It was a small thing, but it felt important. That evening, she brought the pendant home and hid it in a drawer, afraid her father might see it and question her. At dinner, the air felt heavy again. Her father asked about her studies, about the neighbor's broken fence, about everything except her. Finally, he said, "Are you still thinking about that talent show?" His tone was dismissive, cold. Lily didn't answer. But that question stayed with her all night. Her silence was an answer he seemed to expect. Late at night, she sat near her window holding the pendant Maya gave her. She thought of how it felt to sing in Maya's living room, how everyone was quiet, how someone even cried. That feeling was real. It was hers, and no one could take that away. But then the fear crept back in. What if she froze on stage? What if everyone laughed? And worse, what if her father was right all along? The next morning at school, Lily walked past the sign-up sheet again. Maya was standing nearby, watching her quietly. She didn't say anything, just smiled warmly. Lily picked up the pen and, with shaking hands, wrote her name at the bottom of the list. Her heart raced as she stepped back. It was done. She felt scared but also strangely free. Word spread quickly around the school. Lily, the quiet girl, was going to sing. Some students whispered, others seemed surprised, but Maya simply gave her a proud look that made Lily feel just a little stronger. That evening, when Lily got home, her father was already waiting. He'd heard from a neighbor that Lily had signed up for the show. "You're serious about this?" he asked, arms crossed. Lily nodded quietly. For a moment he said nothing, just stared at her. Then came the words she feared most. "You're going to make a fool of yourself. You can't sing. Don't come crying when everyone laughs at you." Those words were sharp and heavy, but this time, they didn't crush her completely. A small part of her held on tightly to the feeling from Maya's living room. That feeling was real. Lily went to her room and took out the pendant again. She slipped it over her head and felt its weight against her chest. It was as if Maya's kindness was protecting her, giving her courage to keep going. The next few days, she practiced quietly. Often late at night when her father was asleep, she sang softly into her pillow, humming melodies, learning every line of her chosen song until it felt like part of her. As the day of the show came closer, the fear grew stronger, but so did her determination. This wasn't just about proving her father wrong anymore. This was about proving to herself that her dream mattered, that her voice mattered, even if she shook. On stage, even if her voice cracked, she knew she had to try. This was her moment, and for once, she was going to take it. The day before the talent show arrived faster than Lily expected. At school, the hallways were full of chatter. Students joked about their acts, rehearsed lines, and some even teased each other about who would win. But Lily kept quiet, headphones on. Walking slowly to her classroom, her heart felt heavy but hopeful. At lunch, Maya sat beside her as always. "You ready for tomorrow?" she asked, a smile in her voice. Lily gave a nervous laugh. "Ready? No, but I'm going to do it anyway." That evening, Maya invited Lily over one last time. "Let's do one more practice. Just you and me," she said gently. In Maya's living room, the lights dimmed low. Lily held a small microphone they had borrowed from the school. The speakers were simple, but the moment felt special. As Lily began to sing, her voice was still soft, almost unsure, but as she kept going, her voice grew stronger with every line. Maya sat quietly, eyes closed, swaying gently, completely absorbed. When Lily finished, Maya clapped softly and said, That was beautiful." But there was no time to relax. When Lily got home that night, her father was waiting again. He didn't speak right away, but his expression said everything. His disappointment felt like a dark cloud hanging over her head. "You're really doing this tomorrow?" he asked quietly. Lily nodded without saying a word. Her father shook his head slowly and muttered, "You'll regret it," before walking away. Even though the words hurt, they didn't break her this time. She sat on her bed, pendant around her neck, and stared at her reflection in the mirror. She could see the fear in her eyes, but also something else, a quiet determination. Before going to sleep, Lily pulled out an old photograph of her mother. It was faded but precious, showing her mother laughing while holding a guitar. Lily whispered, "I wish you were here. I wish you could see me tomorrow." That night, she barely slept. Her mind kept replaying her song, imagining the stage, the lights, the people. Her father's words crept in too, but she kept pushing them aside. This was about more than him. Now this was about her. The next morning, Lily woke early. She picked out a simple dress and braided her hair the way her mother used to do. As she placed the pendant around her neck, she felt a strange peace. Nervous, yes, but also ready. At school, the auditorium buzzed with excitement. The stage was set, chairs lined up neatly, teachers guiding students to their seats. Behind the curtain, performers waited their turn, practicing quietly or pacing nervously. Lily found a quiet corner backstage and sat down, her hands shaking. She took a few deep breaths, closed her eyes, and began humming her song softly. She imagined standing on the stage, imagined the lights, imagined singing from her heart. Then, she heard her name called. Next up, Lily. The sound of applause and cheers from the audience made her heart race. She stood slowly, feeling her legs tremble. But before she stepped out, Maya appeared at her side. She didn't say a word, just squeezed Lily's hand gently and smiled. That one small gesture gave Lily exactly what she needed. As she took her first step onto the stage, she could feel her heart pounding loudly in her chest. The lights were bright, almost blinding, and as she reached the microphone, she quickly scanned the crowd. Her father was there, sitting near the back, arms crossed, expression unreadable. But this time, Lily didn't let her gaze stay on him. Instead, she looked at Maya in the front row, smiling warmly, and then she looked at the rest of the audience, filled with classmates and teachers. For a brief moment, time seemed to pause. She took one deep breath. The first note left her lips, soft, trembling but real. The audience fell silent, all eyes on her. This was her moment. And though the fear was still there, so was her courage. She was finally doing what she had dreamed of all along. As Lily stood on that stage, microphone in hand, a strange quiet surrounded her. Even though there were dozens of people watching, it felt like she was alone with her thoughts. Her fingers tightened around the microphone, her heart beating so loud she wondered if anyone could hear it too. At first, her voice wavered, the first note almost too soft to fill the large hall. A few students whispered to each other, and Lily's stomach twisted with doubt. Her father sat in the back, arms crossed, his face as unreadable as ever. But then something shifted. Lily closed her eyes, blocking out everything and everyone. She imagined herself sitting in her bedroom, singing softly to the moon. She imagined her mother's warm voice humming in the kitchen, the comfort of those childhood memories wrapping around her like a blanket. Slowly, her voice grew steadier. The next line was clearer, the note smoother. Her hands stopped trembling as her mind sank fully into the song. With each verse, the nervousness melted away, replaced by something deeper: emotion, memory, truth. The auditorium fell completely silent. Even the students who usually joked and whispered sat still, their eyes fixed on Lily. The teachers leaned forward slightly, listening closely, surprised by the power hidden in the shy girl's voice. As she reached the chorus, her voice lifted strong and beautiful. Every word carried her story, her quiet pain, her loneliness, her hope. It wasn't a perfect performance, but it was real, raw, honest. Maya sat in the front row, tears filling her eyes. She smiled proudly, nodding gently to encourage her friend. Even some of Lily's classmates who had never spoken much to her looked moved. The whole room was holding its breath, waiting for her next note, and then Lily dared to open her eyes. Her gaze swept across the crowd near the back. Her father was still there, but something was different. His arms had dropped to his sides, and though his face remained serious, his eyes seemed softer, almost thoughtful. Lily's heart skipped a beat. For the first time, she wasn't afraid of what I thought. This was her song, her story, and she was finally free to share it. The final verse came, and she poured every bit of feeling into it. Her voice rose with emotion, cracking slightly but all the more powerful because of it. When she hit the last note, there was a moment of stillness, a deep, beautiful silence where nothing else existed. Then suddenly, applause broke out. It started softly, then grew louder and louder until the whole auditorium was clapping, cheering, some even standing. Lily blinked back tears, overwhelmed by the reaction. She smiled through her nerves, her chest tight with emotion but also relief. In that moment, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Pride. She had done it. She had sung from her heart, and it was enough. As she stepped back from the microphone, her eyes searched the crowd one more time. Her father was standing too, not clapping yet, but not looking away either. His face was hard to read, but he was still there, still watching. Backstage, Maya rushed up and hugged her tightly. "I knew you could do it," she whispered. Lily laughed through her tears, feeling lighter than she had in a very long time. For so many years she had doubted herself. She had believed the words that said she would never be enough. But tonight, she had proven at least to herself that she was more than enough. She didn't know what her father would say later, or what tomorrow would bring. But tonight she had sung, and everyone had listened. Everyone had felt something real, and some had even cried. That was more than she had ever dared to dream. When Lily walked off stage, her hands were still shaking. But this time, it wasn't from fear, it was from something else. Excitement, relief, maybe even joy. Backstage, the other performers looked at her differently now. A few smiled, some nodded respectfully, and even those who usually ignored her seemed impressed. Maya rushed forward first, wrapping her in a tight hug. "You did it," Maya whispered. "You were amazing." Lily laughed softly, her cheeks warm from all the attention. It felt strange and good, but in the back of her mind, one question kept rising. What would her father say? The talent show continued, but Lily sat quietly backstage. Her mind replayed the moment when she had opened her eyes and seen her father standing there. He hadn't clapped like everyone else, but he hadn't left either. When the show ended and students began leaving, Lily stepped outside into the cool evening air. The sky above was deep blue, stars scattered like tiny lanterns. Her heart still raced as she scanned the crowd for her father, and then she saw him, standing by the school gate, waiting. His posture was stiff, his face unreadable as always, but he hadn't gone home without her. Lily walked slowly toward him, unsure what to expect. Would he scold her? Would he say she had embarrassed herself? Or worse, would he say nothing at all? As she stopped in front of him, there was an awkward silence. He didn't speak right away, and Lily's courage almost faltered. But then, without meeting her eyes, he said quietly, "I didn't know you could sing like that." His voice was softer than usual, almost careful. Lily didn't know what to say, so she just nodded. They walked home together in silence. But this silence felt different. It wasn't cold, it was heavy, thoughtful, uncertain. At home, her father sat down in his usual chair. But this time he didn't open the newspaper. He seemed lost in thought, staring out the window. Finally, he spoke again, this time looking at her directly. "You sang from your heart tonight," he said slowly. "I didn't expect that." Lily felt her throat tighten, unsure how to respond. She had waited so long for even a small word of kindness from him. And though this wasn't an apology, it was something. It was a crack in the wall that had stood between them for so many years. That night, as she sat on her bed, pendant still around her neck, Lily smiled to herself. She didn't need loud praise or big words. That simple sentence, "I didn't know you could sing like that," felt like the beginning of something new. And more importantly, she knew that even if he had stayed silent, it wouldn't have changed what had happened. She had done it for herself. She had taken the stage despite all the fear, all the doubt, all the harsh words. She had shared her voice, and people had felt it. That was enough. For the first time in her life, she felt free. The next morning, when she came down for breakfast, her father was already there. He didn't say much, just poured her a cup of tea and slid it across the table toward her. But when he did, there was a small softness in his eyes. Not much, but enough for her to notice. Lily realized that change was slow, and some walls took time to break down completely. But she had already started. Her song had reached not only the audience that night, but maybe, just maybe, her father's heart too. The next few days after the talent show felt different for Lily. At school, people she barely knew started greeting her in the halls. Some smiled shyly, others stopped to say, "You were really good that night." Even teachers who had hardly noticed her before now gave her small nods of respect. For someone who had always felt invisible, this sudden attention was both surprising and strange, but it felt nice, too, like she had finally stepped out of the shadows. One afternoon Maya caught up with her by the lockers. "They're still talking about you, you know," she said with a grin. "You should think about joining the choir or maybe singing at the spring festival." Lily laughed nervously. "I don't know. That was just one performance." But inside, a quiet seed of confidence was beginning to grow. Maybe she could keep singing. Maybe this wasn't just a one-time moment at home. Things were different too. Her father didn't suddenly become warm or cheerful, but his silence had softened. In the evenings, he no longer told her to stop wasting time when she practiced softly in her room. In fact, he said very little, but for the first time, he listened. One evening, as Lily sat at the table, doing homework, her father walked in quietly and placed something beside her. It was a small old radio, the same one her mother used to play music on years ago. Her father simply said, "It's been sitting in the attic. Maybe you can use it," and walked away. Lily sat frozen for a moment, her fingers gently brushing the dusty surface of the radio. It was such a simple gesture, but it felt like a bridge. Small but meaningful. That night, she cleaned it carefully, plugged it in, and turned the dial. When music finally crackled out, she smiled to herself, feeling her mother's presence again. A few nights later, Maya came over for tea. Lily told her about the radio and how her father had given it to her without saying much. Maya grinned. "That's huge. That's his way of showing he's proud of you, even if he can't say it out loud yet." As they sat listening to music, Lily felt peaceful, for the first time in a long while. Her home didn't feel heavy anymore. The walls still held memories of harsh words, but now they also held music, her music. At school, another announcement was made. A spring festival was planned for next month, and they were looking for performers. When Lily saw the sign-up sheet, she paused. She wasn't sure if she was ready for another stage, but Maya encouraged her again. "You belong there. This time, more people will come just to hear you sing." And for the first time, Lily didn't feel afraid at the thought. The fear hadn't disappeared completely. It was still there, a soft hum in the background, but her courage was louder now. That quiet strength she had found on the stage that night stayed with her. At dinner, she gently told her father, "There's another performance coming soon. I'm thinking about signing up." He didn't respond right away, but after a long pause, he said quietly, "Do what you feel is right." His words weren't full of enthusiasm, but they weren't filled with doubt either, and somehow, that was enough. More than enough. Lily realized that sometimes, people didn't change in big dramatic ways. Sometimes they softened slowly, one quiet moment at a time. As she lay in bed that night, listening to the old radio playing softly, she smiled. She thought back to how she had almost given up before the talent show, how fear and doubt had almost silenced her completely. But now, her voice was alive. Her courage wasn't loud or showy, but it was steady, and she knew that the next time she stepped onto a stage, she would sing not because she had to prove anything, but because she loved it, and that made all the difference. The next week passed quickly, and before Lily knew it, the spring festival was only days away. Her name was already on the list of performers, written in clear, bold letters. This time, she hadn't waited until the last minute or hesitated at the sign-up sheet. She wrote her name herself, with steady hands. At school, excitement filled the air. Posters went up around campus. Teachers discussed festival plans, and students prepared performances. Some planned group dances, a few would read poetry, and others rehearsed magic tricks. But almost everyone was talking about one thing. Lily would sing again. For Lily, this felt different from the talent show. Before, she had been terrified, afraid of failing, afraid of her father's judgment, afraid of standing out. Now, the fear was still there, but it was smaller, easier to carry. At lunch one day, Maya leaned across the table and asked, "What song will you sing this time?" Lily smiled quietly. "It's a song my mother used to play on that old radio." Maya's eyes softened. "Perfect choice. You're going to make everyone feel something again." Every evening, Lily practiced in her room with the door open. Her father never interrupted anymore. Sometimes she noticed him walking past slowly, pausing outside her door for a few seconds before continuing on. He never said anything about it, but she knew he was listening. The day before the festival, something unexpected happened. Lily came home from school and found her father in the living room. He wasn't reading the newspaper this time. Instead, he was holding a small object wrapped in an old cloth. When Lily walked in, he cleared his throat awkwardly and held it out. "It's your mother's notebook," he said quietly. "I found it while going through some boxes. Thought you might want it." Lily gently took the notebook and sat down. Inside were pages filled with handwritten lyrics, thoughts about music, and little drawings her mother had made. It was like finding a piece of her mother again, a connection that felt warm and precious. She flipped through the pages slowly, touched by every word and sketch. Her father sat quietly across from her, saying nothing more, but his presence felt different, calmer, softer than before. That evening, as she prepared for bed, Lily decided she would carry that notebook with her to the festival, not as a prop, but as a reminder that music had always been part of her story, even when she had doubted herself. The morning of the festival arrived with bright sunshine and clear skies. The schoolyard was decorated with colorful banners and balloons. A large stage stood in the middle, with chairs set up neatly for students, teachers, and parents. Backstage, performers adjusted costumes, tuned instruments, and whispered nervously to each other. Lily stood quietly near the curtain, her mother's notebook tucked safely in her bag, her pendant hung around her neck, cool against her skin. When it was finally her turn, she stepped onto the stage slowly. She could feel the eyes of the entire school on her, but this time it didn't scare her. She spotted Maya sitting right at the front, smiling and giving her a small thumbs up. And then, almost to her surprise, she saw her father again, sitting in the audience, not at the back this time, but closer to the front. His face was serious, but he was there, watching, listening. Lily took a deep breath and smiled softly. She adjusted the microphone and gently said into it, "This is a song that meant a lot to my mother, and now, it means a lot to me too." Her voice was calm, steady, and kind. Then she began to sing, from the first note. It was clear that this performance was different. Her voice wasn't just beautiful, it was full of feeling. Each word carried years of memories, quiet pain, soft hope, and quiet strength. The crowd grew still again, just like at the talent show. Even those who had come just for fun now sat silently, watching, listening, feeling. Halfway through the song, Lily glanced quickly at her father. His hands rested on his lap, and though his expression was unreadable, his eyes were focused on her completely. And at that moment, Lily felt something lift from her heart. She no longer cared about applause, or prizes, or who thought she was good enough. This was her gift, her music, her story, her voice, and she was finally free to share it. As the final note echoed across the schoolyard, the audience stayed silent for a heartbeat before bursting into applause. Lily smiled, tears shining in her eyes, her heart light and full. This time, the stage didn't feel scary at all. It felt like home when Lily stepped away from the microphone. The applause felt louder than she had ever imagined, but this time, the applause didn't make her nervous. It made her feel warm, proud, and at peace. She scanned the audience quickly. There were students clapping enthusiastically, teachers smiling, and parents standing to cheer. But what caught her eye most was her father. He wasn't clapping at first. He just sat there, watching her with the same serious expression he always had. But then, slowly, quietly, he raised his hands and joined the applause. Not with loud, fast claps, but soft, deliberate ones. That small action meant more to Lily than any trophy. As she walked down the steps from the stage, students came up to her one after another. "That was beautiful," one classmate said. "You gave me chills," said another. Even students who had never spoken to her before smiled and nodded in admiration. For so long, Lily had felt invisible, unsure of her place in the world. Now, for the first time, she felt seen, not just as the quiet girl, but as someone with a voice that mattered. After the festival ended, parents and families began gathering near the stage to meet their children. Lily waited quietly at the edge of the crowd, not sure what her father would say or do, but then she felt a light tap on her shoulder. She turned and saw him standing there, holding something wrapped in a small cloth. "I thought you might want this," he said quietly, handing it to her. When Lily opened it, her breath caught. It was an old cassette tape, a recording her mother had made years ago. On it, written in careful handwriting, were the words, "For my daughter, when she finds her own voice." Lily felt her eyes sting with tears. Her father looked down, cleared his throat, and said softly, "Your mother. She would have loved to hear you today." That sentence was more than any apology he could have given. It was the first time he had mentioned her mother like that in years. Lily didn't know what to say. Instead, she simply hugged him, something she hadn't done in a long time. At first, he stiffened, unused to the closeness, but then, slowly, his arms wrapped gently around her. In that quiet embrace, years of distance, silence, and hurt began to dissolve. Not all at once, but enough. When they pulled apart, her father looked at her with tired but kind eyes. "I was wrong," he said softly. "I didn't see it before, but you are enough. You always were." Those words struck deeper than all the harsh words that had come before. Lily didn't need validation anymore. She had found her strength on her own, but hearing those words was still healing. As they walked home together, the air between them felt lighter. They didn't talk much, but for once, it was a peaceful silence. That night, Lily sat on her bed, holding the old cassette tape. She placed it gently next to her mother's notebook, feeling surrounded by memories and love. Her room, once a quiet place of fear and doubt, now felt filled with music, hope, and warmth. It wasn't perfect. There would still be difficult days, but something had changed. Her father had softened. Her friends had stood by her. Her voice had reached people's hearts. And maybe most importantly, she had finally believed in herself. For the first time in a long while, she felt free, not just as a singer, but as herself. As she turned off the lights and laid down, she smiled softly. Tomorrow would be a new day, and she was ready to meet it. The days after the festival felt brighter. Lily walked through school with a calm confidence she had never felt before. People smiled when they passed her, teachers nodded warmly, and some students even asked when she would sing again. But Lily didn't rush to plan her next performance. This time, she let herself enjoy the moment, not for recognition or attention, but because she had finally discovered her own strength. At home, things felt gentler too. Her father was still quiet, still a little reserved, but something inside him had changed. He no longer criticized when he heard her singing softly in the evenings. Sometimes he even paused in the hallway, listening quietly before moving on. One evening, as Lily was preparing dinner, her father did something that surprised her. He sat at the kitchen table, cleared his throat, and asked, "Do you remember that song your mother used to play every morning?" Lily nodded slowly. "I do." He looked down at his hands and said, "You should sing that one next time." It was her favorite. For a moment, Lily felt her throat tighten. It wasn't a big conversation, but it meant the world. Her father was starting to open up slowly, in his own quiet way, and she could feel it. That night, she sat by her window, her mother's old cassette tape resting on her lap. She listened to her mother's soft voice recorded years ago, singing gently through the old radio her father, who had given her. The sound was warm and imperfect, but it made her feel close to her mother again. Maya called later that evening, her voice excited. "Lily, did you hear? The community center is organizing a summer concert. They're inviting local singers, and they want you to perform." Lily laughed softly. "How did they even hear about me?" Maya chuckled. "Word travels fast when you make people cry." A festival. For the first time, Lily didn't feel nervous at the idea of singing in front of strangers. Instead, she felt grateful. Not just because people appreciated her voice, but because she had learned something much deeper. Her voice didn't need to be perfect. It just needed to be honest. She signed up for the summer concert a few days later. This time, there was no hesitation, no doubt. Her father quietly watched her fill out the form at the kitchen table. When she finished, he simply said, "I'll come watch." Just 3 words, but they meant more than any long speech. The night of the concert arrived, and Lily stood backstage once again. But this time it felt different. Her heart was calm, steady, excited, but not afraid. She stepped onto the stage and smiled at the audience. Among the crowd, she spotted Maya waving enthusiastically and just a few rows back, her father sitting still but present. Lily took a deep breath. In her hands, she held her mother's notebook, tucked carefully beside the microphone stand, around her neck. The silver pendant Maya had given her glinted softly under the lights, and then she began to sing. Her voice was full, rich, steady, not just beautiful but honest. Every note carried her journey, the fear she had overcome, the quiet courage she had found, and the love she had rediscovered. The crowd listened intently, smiles and tears mixed in there. The expressions, but Lily didn't sing for applause this time. She sang for herself, for her mother's memory, for her friend's kindness, and even for her father's quiet, imperfect love. As she finished the song, the applause rose like a wave, loud and joyful. But this time, Lily didn't need it to know her worth. She smiled softly, heart full. As she stepped away from the microphone, she had found her voice not just as a singer but as a person. And this was only the beginning, the end.